Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bittner and Colin McIsaac from Gamnesia to discuss everything Nintendo Switch. Because it's been 1 month, guys. Nintendo Switch has been out for 1 month, and I figured it'd be good to get together and talk about just, our general impressions so far, like what we think the Switch is doing well, what we think it could do better, and everything else. So let's just dive right on in. Colin, let's start off with you. You've had the Switch for about a month now. What do you think of it?
I think it's great. I think Nintendo is back on top, at least in my heart. They've finally made consumer technology that doesn't look like a Fisher-Price toy, and I can't believe how excited I am. I love it so much. Switch is the greatest. I
praise.
Yeah, no kidding.
I
will agree on the look, though. Like, the sleekness of the console was definitely one of its highest points. It looks so much better than the Wii and the Wii U, just as far as the style and, making it look attractive and not, as you said, a toy. So, definitely got to agree with you there as far as just praiseworthy as far as its design. But I'm not quite all roses like you are, Colin.
Oh man.
I mean, there are a couple things that I'm gonna get into, but I mean, like this is a system that I like just holding and not even playing games on. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's a comfortable system. Like, that's one of the things that's magical about it in a way, is that it's a whole console you can hold. They didn't compromise the controls at all. Like, you have a full console controller, and they somehow made it, not feel cramped or uncomfortable, like, on the 3DS or really any of the previous handhelds, I would say. Touching on the style real quick, I love that it doesn't look like this Wii U's gamepad, the total Fisher-Price toy. But I actually would say it's actually closer to it actually reminds me a little bit of the Wii. Like, I thought the Wii was actually very stylish. I thought, like, when it came out, like, that sent a clear message what it was. And I feel like the Switch is doing the same thing. The Wii U is the one that boshed it all, and
totally agreed. I mean, I love the gamepad. It has a weird, awkward, silly place in my heart, but it's not a good piece of technology. It's lovable, but it's not the same thing.
So I think it was really this past week and a half or so that I was finally able to fully appreciate what it is that the Switch is and what it can do. Because I took a last-minute trip to Seattle, and that gave me the opportunity to try out the Switch in a variety of circumstances. So starting off, I was of course at the airport, then on the plane, and I was just able to play Fast Racing Neo, in both cases, which is kind of amazing because that was the same game I was playing the night before on my TV, and it looked gorgeous, and it still looks just as gorgeous on the handheld. And that actually is kind of a big thing, I think, that is easy to overlook. It's not that the Switch is just a, console and a handheld, it's that it's literally both. So you're playing the exact same games in both cases. So one of the reasons I didn't bother with handheld gaming much before is because I didn't like playing games outside the house. Partially because those games never got their hooks into me. I never want to play it anywhere. Whereas with a Switch, these games get their hooks into me at home, and I want to keep playing it out on the go. So it allows me to easily keep playing these games. Okay, moving on. Once I landed in Seattle, I went to a friend's house. He had just moved to Seattle, ironically, because he got a job at Nintendo, and he was still unpacking everything. So he didn't have a TV set up at all. But we were able to set the Switch up on the table, kick the kickstand out, and we had 2 controllers right there with the Joy-Cons, and we were able to play Bomberman right away, all without a TV, and that is pretty darn cool. Finally, speaking of TVs, I took it to my parents' house and actually properly hooked up to their TV, but I brought my dock with me as well. And the fact that I just brought an entire console with me to my parents' house easily in my little backpack is kind of mind-blowing. And so I was able to show them Zelda, we played some 1-2 Switch, I played a few other games in there. That really just sealed the deal to me for how versatile this console really is. Because it works basically anywhere. And that's something I haven't really been able to do, certainly not this easily, with any other system to anywhere near this degree. Yeah, I used to take my Wii U home with me so I could play Nintendo Land, but that was a pain in the butt compared to taking the Switch with me. And it was through that trip that I fully was able to appreciate what the Switch really is.
Absolutely, and I think that's why Nintendo's whole strategy with this thing is so brilliant, is because gaming is at a point now where you don't want to keep your games plugged solely into one device. Every other company is doing this with, like, the PS4 SharePlay and Xbox's whole Xbox Anywhere thing, but Nintendo's got it tied to their system itself. You can take it anywhere, and you've got a screen with you. So I think that's, for one, I think that your experiences, and I've had a lot of the same kinds of experiences, showing it off to friends, taking it out and putting it on tables anywhere where there's not even a TV in sight, and playing a full console experience is phenomenal. And so I think that this is really, it really speaks well to, first of all, how visionary Nintendo still is as a company, and how when they apply themselves thoughtfully and carefully, they can make technology that really defines the future of gaming.
See, now I'm jealous because you guys actually got the full Switch experience. I've yet to be able to take it on a trip or take it over to friends' places or anything like that because, the friends I would show it off to already have a Switch, so there's not really any point to it or anything like that. And I haven't gone on any plane trips recently, so I haven't been able to take it along with that. But, just using it as a console itself, I'm still enjoying my time with the Switch. Now, granted, I've been playing mostly Breath of the Wild, so that probably has a major factor in there, but I really do see the potential of the Switch as time goes on.
Totally. And I took a quick trip. I live in LA. I am from Boston. I took a quick trip to Boston recently, and I was playing Switch on the subway, Shovel Knight, Breath of the Wild. It's just such a great console for commuters and commuting, and I don't really know where I'm going with that, but that's that's something.
You're kind of right. I mean, it kind of touches on a point, on how I felt. I feel like, in that handheld gaming hasn't typically appealed to me. And like, as soon as smartphones came out, I think that's what killed handheld gaming for me.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like I would rather just carry a single device with me and just browse Facebook or read articles or listen to podcasts than play on a very compromised gaming experience, on a very compromised handheld. That is actually literally what killed handheld gaming for me. Like, whenever I would do reviews for handheld games, I would play them at home. I would never take my... I can count the number of times I took the 3DS out of my house probably on one hand. After, like, the first few months. Like, I barely did it at all. But the Switch makes me want to do it again because... For two main reasons. Again, you can play the same game, so I already have... The hooks are already in me from playing it at home. And two, it's a social system. It's a little bit like the Wii in that sense, in that you want to play it with other people. Now, granted, there's not a ton of games out there at this point that fully showcases that feature. But even the few that there are, like, I've already had fun just showing it off to people, and you have the two controllers built in, which is just... That is brilliant. Having two controllers with you at all times is ingenious.
And it's really going to revive, I think, the same kind of like arcade sensibilities that made games like Street Fighter and Double Dragon and all that so popular. This is really going to be a multiplayer-heavy console if it's going to, that's where it's going to shine brightest, at least.
I hope so.
Yeah, it was great. I had friends over, and I didn't go to their place. That's why I wasn't able to check out the mobile functionality of it. But they were checking out the Switch itself, and I downloaded the demo for Snipper Clips, and their husband and wife, I just handed it over to them, stayed quiet, and just let them experience the system on their own, and they just really enjoyed it. Like, it was great just watching them just bond and have just so much fun. And he's a bit of a gamer, but she is kind of there. Like, she'll play a little bit, but she's not really that into it. But they were just having fun together, just experiencing this because it's just really easy to get that multiplayer experience, and Snipper Clips is a really good game for that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. My mom loved Snipper Clips, and she never plays video games.
I mean, my dad, so the only game my dad can play, which is going to sound pretty funny actually, is Resident Evil 4. The only reason he can play that game...
What?
I know, this makes no sense at all. Only because through sheer will, he forced himself to get used to the controls on the Wii. Like, it was only when they came out to the Wii they could play it. Like, I didn't even bother trying to teach him with a gaming controller. But with the Wii, you could point, and you could, it offered, it made it a little bit easier for him to get into. That's literally the only game he can play, because he can't handle a standard controller or whatever else. But once I brought the Switch over to his place, because he's been following our Zelda coverage, he's like, damn, that game looks really cool. I gave him the controller, and yeah, it's a complete mess. But still, like, the Switch was inviting enough to him that he was willing to stick with it, and like, he played the game for a couple hours while I was up in Seattle, and he loved what he played. I think what I'm getting at is there's something inviting about the Switch that I don't think we've seen in a home console besides, again, maybe the Wii, or, as with the Wii, I guess. There is just something different about it. There's something not quite intimidating about it. I don't know what that is fully.
Well, and I think it's really a return to Nintendo's classic sensibilities that gaming is about inviting new people and making intuitive experiences that anyone can understand. That's why they've been innovating things like the D-pad from the very beginning. That's why they made the one-handed controller for the Wii. They've been looking at ways to simplify just the hardware interfaces for a long, long time. And so this is just another one of those consoles, I think, that really demonstrates that sort of epiphany that they have every now and again as they cycle through increasingly complex controllers like Nintendo 64 and GameCube, and then rubber band back to something like Wii, and then stick a screen in the middle of a normal video game controller and flip the sticks around, and then they rubber band back and say, hey, we gotta make it simple, we gotta make it easy and clean. And on that front, I think it also demonstrates something that we did really, really well with its home menu. We did that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think around the same time Apple was doing the same stuff with home menus on smartphones. They really
we preceded it even.
Designed a fantastic interface. Yeah. And the Switch OS, it's completely non-intrusive, and yet it's completely accessible 100% of the time. I am astounded at how quickly this thing boots up, at how quickly it shuts off, how seamless every single action you take is.
Well, that's the crazy thing with me, is because I'll grab the controller and the first thing I'll do is hit the home button to turn it on, and wake it up from sleep mode, and I'll go to my chair to sit down and get the remote to turn it on, and I very quickly realized that the Switch was turning on my TV as well.
Right.
Like as soon as it turned on, it turned on my TV and got it set up there. And I do a lot of recording stuff, so I have different inputs. So when I was, I'll have it from HDMI 2 and I'll swap it back to HDMI 1 for my traditional Switch port. But my TV will still be on HDMI 2 from the previous time I was playing it, and it automatically switch it to HDMI 1 as well.
That's incredible. I've never noticed any of that. I gotta keep an eye out. I've always switched the TV. Got that set up first and then put the Switch on, but wow, okay.
It's actually an option in settings you may have to turn on first, but yeah, it's super convenient.
Oh, I didn't touch it. I think it's already on.
Okay, it may already be on, yeah. No, it's super nice. I love that. Because I lose my remote control all the time, so the fact that Switch can turn it on by itself is great.
Oh, and that's something that I loved from the Wii U gamepad was the TV functionality, and that you could program it as a remote, and I was disappointed to see that it would fall by the wayside with Switch, but I guess they made it even better.
I totally agree on the Switch OS. I'm still impressed every time I press home, and it immediately goes to the Switch screen, or to the Switch home screen.
Oh, it's so fast, I love it.
Yeah, especially, even compared to the gamepad, or even compared to the Wii U and Wii, which hilariously offered you almost nothing in the way of options. In both cases, you had to completely exit the game to do anything, basically. So I love that you have pretty much full access to everything on the home menu, with only a few exceptions, while in-game even, and that is super impressive. So I love how quick it is. I like taking screenshots, I like sharing them. It's just fun to use.
Yeah, the screenshot button is amazing. I love manipulating the camera in Zelda in cool ways and just taking cool pictures. I did photography for a little while, and I don't really do it anymore, but this snapshot button makes it so fun to take pictures in virtual worlds. So I love that. I also love the quick menu, the quick home menu when you hold the button. And so it brings up the brightness controls and everything. That's also incredibly nice. So huge shout out there. Andre, you were mentioning the IR camera on the Joy-Cons. If we're talking about Joy-Con functionality, I really wish one of them had a headphone jack, because it's such a shame to be playing on the TV and not being able to use headphones.
Yeah.
That's the way I experience games, and I love music and I love the sound of games, and so having to choose between blasting the volume or muting the TV is not a decision I want to have to make.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I don't really use headphones, but I can see that definitely would be nice. It's because that's what the PS4 does, and I know a lot of people love the functionality. Is plug it, and the gamepad too, of course. So
gamepad did it, yep.
Yeah, just plug it right in, and you're good to go. So Derek, I want to circle back to something you were kind of talking about, how you haven't had the full Switch experience quite yet. So seeing as that is the case, what do you think of the Switch as primarily a console? But that's how you've mostly been using it. Do you think it's a good console by itself without those extra, without the whole benefit of the Switch being that it can go anywhere?
It's kind of hard to tell early on, but I think overall I'm having a very good first impression of it. Mainly playing Zelda, but I've also been checking out Shovel Knight, Treasure Trove, Blaster Master Zero, a few demos here and there, and it's really nice to just pop on and see what's available, grab it, play it, and switching games too. I can actually really see people gravitating toward just all digital, especially for the Switch, just because it's so easy to go from one game to the next. This is the first time I've really felt like, I gotta get up if I want to switch from my two cartridge games are Zelda and Bomberman, so I was like, ugh, I gotta switch from Bomberman to Zelda, or Zelda to Bomberman. And meanwhile, I was like, I'm done playing Zelda, let's play some Shovel Knight, and it just close, open immediately, and it's super nice. That is something I did not expect myself to really gravitate toward.
You're starting to come to the dark side, my friend. You're gonna join me over here.
Trust me, it's not gonna happen, because I like having my boxes, and I know it's dumb, but I like my boxes. Plus, I don't want to fill up my Switch too quickly. I want room in there for virtual console games, and hopefully those GameCube games. So that's more important to me than modern games on there. Like, give me those classics. Especially, I cannot wait for the classics on this console. Again, for the taking one to go and stuff. But as far as just a regular console, I really have no complaints with the system itself and how it how I've been treating it. Like, it's naturally fit into me the same way my PS4 does, and just swap back and forth, and I'm good to go. So I think it does work as just a solely console experience, but it's always nice to have that option where, oh, I gotta do some work where I gotta look at the Zelda map, so I could just set up the Switch next to my computer and just glance over at it without having to like run back and forth or take my laptop into the living room. It's just I can stay comfortable and keep working, and whatever else I might want to do. If I go over to a family's place and want to show it off, I can use that method. It's really neat.
What I think is kind of funny about the Switch is that Nintendo is the only video game company that could pull this off, because they were able to position the Switch as their next console and handheld, whereas there's no way Microsoft or Sony could have done that with the next Xbox or PS4. Or PS5, I guess, because their systems are, of course, pretty powerful, and there's no way to get that power, let alone the power needed in a successor to those, in a form factor the size of the Switch. So it worked out to Nintendo's benefit that the Wii U was as underpowered as it was, allowing them to create a true successor that is not just a home console, but a portable system as well. And that's just kind of funny to me that they're the only console maker that can really pull this off because of their history of not focusing on graphics.
Right, and I think it's important too how cartoony and lighthearted Nintendo's games are, because the visual design of all of Nintendo's properties really facilitates this kind of a system where they put a focus on convenience and portability over just sheer graphical power, because you don't need to see every thread in Mario's jeans. That's not what Nintendo games or Nintendo systems
even though you
are
kind
about.
of, even though you kind of can in Mario Odyssey.
Right, you can get there when it works, but I mean, my general point is, like a game like Breath of the Wild, if you look real close, things are still kind of polygonal. The textures can get pretty rough sometimes, but for the most part, it's still a beautiful game visually. It's absolutely gorgeous, and on the small portable screen, who cares? It's small, it's beautiful, and the artistic design is such that it's really not going to challenge a lot of people's notions about what graphics should be in a game. I don't think people are going to see it and appreciate it rather than complain that it doesn't look good enough. Nintendo's not about that.
That's a really good example, because Breath of the Wild, for me at least, I think it looks amazing. Like, it looks really beautiful at points. At the other hand, I think there's also times when it actually looks pretty ugly. But the fact that the reviews have been as good as they are have shown that people are willing to overlook some graphical deficiencies if the gameplay holds up. And that's something Nintendo's been touting for years.
That's their whole philosophy as a company.
Yeah, it really is, exactly.
Yeah.
Graphics can be pretty major factor for a lot of people, but for Nintendo, you have that right visual style. All of a sudden, it really clicks. And going back to an older example was when Galaxy first came out. It was still in 480p if I remember correctly. So, and it still looked beautiful, and people compared it to a lot of the modern games at the time, just because it just had that visual flair that, like, despite its graphical underperformance in relation to those, it still looked really good and had the gameplay to back it up. And I'm sure we'll see that again with Mario Odyssey. Again, it's definitely a lot more visually impressive than before, but I don't think it's going to get quite to the point we saw with certain PlayStation 4 or Xbox One games, and that's fine. Like, a good style will hold up a lot longer than realistic graphics, and we've seen that time and time and time again.
Wind Waker.
Exactly. Wind Waker is the optional, the big one. Snipper clips will still look amazing 10, 20 years down the line because of that simple visual style.
Right. I mean, I think we're just at a point in gaming where graphics are so good that people are going to be focusing more on creative, interesting choices rather than pushing the boundaries of graphical limitations. And Switch is perfect for that, again.
So what do you guys think about how the Switch has been received so far in the marketplace? Because it seems like, from what we're seeing, it's doing extremely well. It seems like it's still selling out everywhere, as far as I can tell. I haven't been following it too much in the last few days, but we saw that Nintendo's performance in Japan has been doing much better recently. It just seems like right now there's a really good aura around Nintendo in general, even with some of these other, some of the attention they've been getting on some of the less positive aspects of the Switch, I guess. Like the one Crobat video that blew up, showing every possible problem with the Switch in one montage, basically. So, yeah, do you guys have any general thoughts at all right now on how the market's receiving the Switch, and do you think this momentum will keep up?
I don't think people care about those little things like that video that shows issues with it. I mean, everyone I've talked to about Switch sounds fascinated. They sound in love with it. They sound totally on board if they don't have one yet. So I really think that the sheer thesis of the Switch, the fact that you can take a console anywhere and it's as convenient as it could possibly be, is just so fundamentally appealing. And it works on the Switch. It's not that they had an idea that they couldn't follow through on. They followed through and they proved what an amazing idea it is. So I think that really eclipses every problem that we've seen with it. The left Joy-Con issues and there's now like some consoles seem to be warping in heat. But the general sentiment, I think, especially in a less Nintendo-centric sphere, is definitely hugely positive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it is really just something that clicks with people. And I think, people were kind of interested in the Wii U and some of the games, but they just never fully committed. And I have friends who are very interested in Zelda, and they were trying to figure out whether they should get the Wii U version and just get Zelda there, or just upgrade to the Switch and use that. And I was basically giving them positives and negatives for both. And ultimately they decided on the Switch just because it's, even with Mario Kart 8 coming, it's going to and Splatoon, they can experience those games that, they don't, it's not like you're missing out on them if you're getting the Switch and don't get the Wii U. Nintendo is putting those big games on the Switch as well, plus they'll still be able to enjoy Zelda, plus whatever else Nintendo might be putting out. And I think that's helping it as well. It's like there's, sad for the Wii U, but there's a little point to pick it up as a legacy console at the moment. Yeah. And besides, like the game that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if they'll ever port over, is Pikmin 3. And, hopefully that's not the case. It doesn't languish on the system or anything like that, or we'll just get another Pikmin at some point. But I can definitely see that. And plus, this is just such a smart console for the Japanese market because they are so handheld focused, and we're seeing that where the sales almost nearly doubled from last week to this the week before to this most current week, at least as of Friday, I believe. And just seeing it really blow up because, again, Japan is just so much more focused on the handheld market. That's really been eating into Sony's dominance over there, and how mobile titles are just bigger in that territory. And the Switch, of course, is buying into that, where you can take it on the go if you want, but you can also use it as a console. And it's just because of that, it works for each territory, no matter like if they're more about handhelds or for consoles. The consumer can just use it however works best for them. Mm-hmm. And it's that freedom of choice, I think, is really helping the Switch as far as sales.
The Switch is as liberating as the world is a Breath of the Wild.
Yes. Yeah. So it's great to see it selling well. I really do hope it keeps the momentum, though. That's going to be the big question. Like I've said it many times, this first year has an amazing lineup of games. The big question is if they're too spread out at the moment. Because we have Mario Kart, we have ARMS, we have Splatoon, we have Mario, we have Xenoblade, we have Fire Emblem Warriors, we have whatever else that they might show at E3. But right now we are in kind of a lull, other than like their downloadable titles that they keep putting out each week, which is nice to have.
I mean, I think I definitely am with you. I'm feeling kind of a lull. Like I beat Ganon. I've only done like 30% of Breath of the Wild, but that's because there are 900 Korok seeds. But I do feel less incentive to play the system every day now than I did before, and I think that is in huge part because we're not getting Mario Kart until towards the end of April, but it's a new battle mode, which I am very excited about, but it's also not something that I see myself like really diving into. And so I'm really ending up waiting more, I think, for ARMS and Splatoon and Mario Odyssey, maybe Street Fighter. So I definitely feel that sense that when I'm not really interested in playing Zelda for a little bit, I feel like there's not quite enough that, I will want to play. And I think the way to fix that immediately and effectively is to just blast the Virtual Console out there. Because there are so many old games, and everyone wants to play Nintendo's old games. I think that is one of the biggest keys to the Switch's success is the efficacy and the care with which they keep maintaining the Virtual Console service in terms of its library and the quality, just the gameplay experience.
Yeah, I definitely want Virtual Console on there. It's weird that they have, what are they, TurboGrafx 16 games on there currently? Is that what those are?
Yeah. Neo Geo.
Oh, Neo Geo, yeah. That's so weird, like that those are on there without a proper Virtual Console service, and we've heard almost nothing about when Virtual Console's properly coming, so...
Right.
Yeah,
right, and I don't really know whether to expect the best or the worst on that front, because... we've seen how they treated stuff like Virtual Console in the Wii U era, but then we've also seen how well they can do stuff, with the System OS and with the design of the Switch and with games like Breath of the Wild. So I feel like it could, skyrocket all the way through my expectations, or it could end up being kind of disappointing, and I just don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I think right now, looking at the Switch's first year lineup, assuming it holds firm, I think it's still a really good first year. But
yeah, I think so.
I still fully expect Xenoblade to be delayed. I really don't think there's a chance in hell that's coming out this year. And I'm already accounting for that in my previous statement. I still think it's a really strong lineup. With that said, I do think the spacing overall is good, except right now. Right now, right after the Switch's launch, it does feel like we are in a lull. Don't get me wrong, I'm having fun with a lot of the indie games out there. But it's almost a full 2 months from when the Switch launched to its first big multiplayer game being Mario Kart 8, and really their first, their next big first-party title. If I were Nintendo, ultimately in the long term, this probably won't matter much, but I wouldn't be taking any chances if I were Nintendo, and I would have tried to get Mario Kart out within the first month, like within the first 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I feel like toward the end of April is really, it just feels like it's too long at that point.
Yeah,
like right now feels like
the perfect time. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Because most people people who got Zelda at launch are basically finishing it up by now, or most have beaten it, and that's perfect. Like, so what can I play next? Oh, look, Mario Kart's out. Let's get that.
Right, and it's also true that I think Snipper Clips is fantastic, but having a multiplayer game that has been pre-established as one of the best-selling franchises of all time, I think would really do wonders for the Switch's whole concept of taking it anywhere, busting it into 2 controllers, and playing with a friend. I definitely think that Mario Kart could have come sooner, but it's just a couple weeks away, so I don't mind it too much.
Exactly. In the grand scheme of things, probably won't matter that much, if at all. But it would be nice to have now. If I were Nintendo, I would not be taking any chances at all. So, but I will say, I do think having the Splatoon 2 test fire, even though that is effectively just an ad, really, I think that did help.
Right.
That did help fill that gap a little bit. It's like I got some online, multiplayer first-party action, and that was really fun. It gave me like a little taste of that. And now I'm like, damn, I really want Mario Kart. I want more of that. So.
Yeah, I was loving the Splatoon test fire, and then I went to remind myself when this game comes out. I thought it was maybe May, but summer. God, I don't want to wait that long.
Okay, so that's a weird thing. They're now announcing maps left and right, and yet ARMS is coming out before Splatoon 2, supposedly. It feels so weird to me. It feels like they're gearing up for Splatoon, with ARMS coming whenever after, because it feels like we haven't heard much about ARMS. Whereas it really...
I wonder if that's a sign that ARMS is not as fully fleshed out of a game as we might hope for.
Fleshed out because they're arms?
Yeah, because they're arms and their body parts, yeah. So I just don't know quite what to think of ARMS, because I think it sounds like a great concept, it looks like a ton of fun, but you're totally right. They do seem like they're rolling out Splatoon a little heavier, and I would hope that if ARMS is gonna live up to what I would hope to be able to expect from it, that they would be focusing more on promoting that and promoting new trailers and new stages and things. But they may also just be waiting to see if the concept itself proves itself, and if it's fun when it launches.
Yeah, it's really hard to say right now. I mean, it's because I really wasn't that much from Splatoon, and it really was just recently. They just rapid fire, like character, map. Here's how this works. Here's another map. All that kind of stuff. It's really is just recent for Splatoon, and while we haven't heard much from ARMS, I think we do need, like, I can definitely see kind of build up, like, here's a new character, here's new weapons, here's new stages, that kind of thing. There's a way to build up to this, and hopefully end it all with a direct that would get people interested, because I haven't played it at all, but I just have such a feeling of potential with this game. I could be completely wrong, but I feel something for, like, with ARMS, that it could really capture people's attentions. Whether or not it's actually going to pull it off, I have no idea, but a gut feeling I have where ARMS has potential.
Right. I think if it's going to work in the same kind of way that Splatoon did, where it's got a sort of a grassroots marketing campaign aimed at kids. Because it really, like, it's a two-player combat game, and it looks super fun, but I also don't know how many sort of, like, hardcore players who are interested in Breath of the Wild and stuff like that might be attracted to it. So I do think that it has a ton of potential, but it might be from audiences that are not typically involved in, like, the day-to-day Nintendo news, which could also be why they're focusing more on Splatoon in that circle and trying to maybe focus on organizing behind the scenes some sort of campaign for ARMS.
I mean, if they are, I hope they're doing it soon, because the end of spring is June 20th. That's only 2.5 months away, so...
Yeah.
I'd expect it in May, but that's always what I've been sort of basing it on, is expecting ARMS sometime in May. Whether or not it meets that, hard to say.
See, I think this is going to be the game that launches in the same window as Splatoon, where it's like school is just getting out for kids, and so they get a game to play in their newfound free time.
See, now, if it comes out in May, I feel like that's almost too close to Mario Kart. Like, they should bump Mario Kart up, have ARMS in May, and then Splatoon, I don't know, June, July. But who knows when Splatoon's coming out? Maybe that's more late summer, in which case I could see ARMS being a June title, possibly. So
potentially, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we've been pretty positive. I mean, actually, very positive about the Switch so far. But it's not. I don't think it's all completely roses, except for maybe you, Colin, because you said literally that. Derek, I know you mentioned some things at the start. Like you had some things you wanted to bring up about the Switch. So
my biggest annoyance about the Switch right now is its Wi-Fi, and I've never had this issue before with a console. And it's my Switch is set up right next to my router and everything else, and I've had no issue with any other console. It's not connected. The issue I have with it is it doesn't connect as soon as I start the console. I have to either go in and manually connect it, which isn't always reliable for whatever reason, or I'll be playing a game for 5-10 minutes and it finally connects on its own automatically then. So there's been multiple times where I've started up the console and be like, oh, I want to check out the eShop, see what's around, or get the game from that, and it doesn't work. So I either have to do the manual option or play a game for a little bit to try to get it to connect. And I don't know what's causing it. I've looked it up and nobody really has a sense. I always, like, I look up Wi-Fi issues, it's always people having trouble like having it stay connected or something like along those lines. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but it's definitely an annoyance, not a major one, but it's something, you know, I'm going to be streaming Splatoon. I got to make sure the Wi-Fi is on for my Switch to make sure I can actually show off the test fire. Those kind of worries that kind of built up. And that's been my really big issue with the Switch console itself.
Yeah, I've heard some issues with Wi-Fi too. I haven't had them myself, but I've heard that, people are having trouble, so I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with it myself either, but I will say the indicator showing your Wi-Fi strength is a little bit weaker on my system compared to other, like my phone or other devices I've used. So I don't know if it's just maybe reporting that more accurately or less accurately, or if it has an actual less signal. I don't know what's going on there, but so far it seemed to be fine. But there also haven't been too many multiplayer games to test it with. I've been playing Fast Racing RMX, and that has had some like lag issues, but I don't know if that's because of the game or my Wi-Fi connection. So, do you guys have any other like slight quirks or problems you've noticed with the Switch you'd like to see improved in some way?
Going back to the Joy-Con, I talked about how my friends play snipper clips for the first time when they were using the Joy-Con, and so it was the first time I attached the I don't even know what they're called, but the things that make the easier to hit the L and R buttons.
Those things, yeah.
Yeah, and
grips? Are those grips? Joy-Con grips?
No, the grip. I don't know what it's called.
I think
anyway,
there's something. There's
wrist
something.
straps, I think.
Yeah, just the wrist straps.
Okay.
But I got them on just fine. But when I went to take them off, they would not come off.
Yeah,
they
that's
were
right.
like really got stuck in there, and I was like, I needed to use force, but I didn't want to use too much force because I didn't want to break the controller or anything like that. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? Because attaching the Joy-Con to the grip that comes with it, or the Switch console itself, is really easy to get on and off. But for whatever reason, these things are a nightmare.
Did you put them on upside down?
No, they were exactly how they should be, like plus to plus, minus to minus.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, because you have to unlock it, and then you have to. I still don't know if you have to hold the button down or not on the controller itself when you take these off. I do. I don't have it.
I was holding it down the entire time trying to just
I hold
get
the
it.
button down.
Yeah,
it takes a weird amount of force, though.
It does. I mean, it totally does. I agree. I think the wrist straps were actually pretty poorly designed in that they're confusing to use. Literally the first day I got the Switch, after I unboxed it for the video. Actually, no, it was during. I'm trying to remember how I did this. I think it was between videos when I was making my unboxing videos. At any rate, I ended up putting on one of the wrist straps just absentmindedly. Like, I just threw it on. I'm like, you can't screw this up. Turns out you can, but I put it on upside down without even realizing that was a thing. And I couldn't get it off. I'm like, well, crap. I haven't turned my Switch on yet. I've already broken this stupid thing. I can't even get this off. Finally, with enough force, I got it off. But it definitely does not feel like that's something that should happen. So I hope they can re-engineer that maybe in the future. Like, the fact it has a separate lock at the bottom you have to hold down, you can't even tell when it's locked or not, really.
Oh, you have to hold it down?
You have to pull it out, at least.
Oh, okay, I knew that.
But I feel like if you don't
it's all so confusing.
Yeah, it is. I feel like if you don't hold it out, it'll relock itself somehow. I don't know. But also, even once you get it on, those shoulder buttons still don't feel great. Like, they're okay, but sometimes I feel like they're not fully triggering the button when they should be. So I don't know. I need to test it more with games. But yeah, that's definitely the biggest point of improvement I think they can make. Otherwise, I think the controllers were great. Like, even the Joy-Con grip, I was surprised by how efficient that is as a full functioning controller. My actual biggest issue with either the Joy-Con grip or the Pro Controller in general is the fact that on the Pro Controller, the freaking plus and minus buttons are way too close to home and the snapshot button. I'm pressing the wrong ones all the freaking time, and I don't know how they didn't come up in testing. Because I still mix that up constantly. I have like dozens of images of like the home screen or of the pause screen in Zelda just because I couldn't press around.
Yeah, that's happened to me quite a few times too. I'm slowly getting better at it. It happens more with the screenshot button than anything else, just because I'm like, oh, hit select, and I just don't go high enough, and I end up hitting the screenshot button. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's the way it goes. But fortunately, it's not too annoying. The home button is definitely more annoying than the screenshot. It's like, oh, well, I just got to clear that out later.
Right.
But I have a different issue with the Pro Controller, and again, I'm not sure if it's just mine, but how does your D-pad work for your games? Because a lot of times I feel like I swear like I'm hitting a direction. And it goes like I swear like I'm hitting right, and I go up. And it happened in Zelda. It happened in Shovel Knight.
All the time in Zelda. Like that probably contributed just a small amount to my absolute disdain for how they handled switching inventory in Zelda, which I hate, by the way. But I was constantly hitting up when I wanted weapons, or vice versa. And the weird thing is, I actually did a test afterward in the controller configuration screen where I pressed left and right and made sure it was registering it correctly, and it seemed to. So I don't know what is going on with me, with, I guess, people in general. There was a whole topic on NeoGAF about it, I think. Pressing the wrong thing on the Pro Controller in Zelda, so...
Yeah,
that's really interesting. I don't personally have a Pro Controller, so I can't weigh in on this, but if multiple people are having issues, then that sounds like that could be potentially, something not to worry about, I guess, but definitely something that they can improve upon.
Yeah, the only thing is if I want to improve upon it, like let's say it's like, hey, we fixed it. Hey, I get to spend another $70 on a Pro Controller.
Right? Yeah. I think it'd probably be something that they just sort of subtly, like, remember how the left Joy-Con issue, they subtly fixed it and now new units they ship out don't have it at all? Like, I think it might be something like that where just one day all of a sudden new controllers don't have that issue and they don't make a big deal of it.
Actually, well, speaking of... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Derek.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know exactly what's causing it, but I have noticed it, and it's made 2D gaming a little bit of a hassle.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the left Joy-Con issue, I probably should bring that up, just because I wasn't one of the ones affected by it. Which, yeah, it was a little annoying. I actually hadn't noticed it until I took my Switch out to the living room, because when my friends was coming over, I wanted to show it off to him. And he started playing Zelda with the Joy-Con grip. And that's when he noticed he was losing connection every few minutes, and like would just keep running whatever direction, and that's when I'm like, well, crap, I need to start testing this and see what's going on here. So yeah, I'm glad that they seemingly fixed that. I got mine repaired, and it seems like it's been resolved. I did a follow-up video showing that, but it's unfortunate that problem happened at all, because that was annoying. I'm glad it's fixed, and they fixed it pretty quickly, but, you know, that's something they should have caught before it went out to people, so...
Right.
Alright, well, I think we've covered it pretty well here so far. I do have a bunch of questions here, but I'm going to hold from our viewers, but I think I'm going to hold them off for a separate video. So before we wrap it up, though, do you guys have any final thoughts about the Switch itself you want to get out there that we haven't touched on already?
Mainly just, I think the Switch is off to a very solid start. And I think if I feel like I'm repeating myself so much on this thing, they can just keep that momentum, and that's the only thing I'm worried about with the Switch right now as it is. I'm hoping for updates to fix my issues with the Wi-Fi and who knows, maybe the Pro Controller stuff. Like, I feel like this is stuff that can be easily fixed in the future, but I want to see them keep this momentum up from what they've done already, because they are off to such a good start, and GameStop seems especially happy with how it's doing, where they're constantly talking about, oh, we think this could be bigger than the Wii. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'm kind of doubtful, to be honest, but I like that it's done so well out of the gate that people are interested, and I'm hoping that Nintendo capitalizes on it. But as a consumer, I've enjoyed my time with Zelda. I have Blaster Master Zero and Shovel Knight waiting for me to play more of, and I could check out some other smaller games as well, but I own other consoles, and this has been a very good year for games, so I might miss out on those. But as far as the Switch itself, like, there is stuff to play, just not in the major sense, like, you know, a Mario, a Zelda, you know, stuff like that to keep you consistently playing. So we'll see how it does in the future, but a solid start with the great potential to do well or sink back into old habits, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I really double down on those thoughts. I really am worried because of a lot of what we've seen in the last couple of years of, you know, some software decisions that we've seen. Not going to name names like Mario Tennis Ultra Smash or Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival or Chibi Robo Ziplash, but they've made some bad decisions lately. And I don't want to see those same kinds of things happening on the Switch and taking precedence over, for example, a new Metroid game, a new F-Zero game, things that, you know, fill niches in gaming that are generally a lot less filled than 2D platformers. And I really want to see them taking care of their franchises and making new kinds of games that we can play on Switch and really, really enjoy. And if not that, then at least a really strong effort to court third parties and get games like Overwatch, Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy VII Remake on this system. Because honestly, after playing Zelda, I never want to play a single game locked to my TV ever again. Like, this device is so incredible, and I hope that they just put all their efforts on Switch from now on. I don't want to see them focusing on any other consoles, honestly.
There is something just cool about the fact that you can play these console games anywhere, including online games, assuming you have an internet connection. Yeah. And that is something that I agree with you, Colin. I would love to see more of. Like, games like Overwatch or even Rocket League, I would love to see on the Switch. Like,
totally, Rocket League on Switch would be amazing. Oh my god!
Like, you could go to a Starbucks, sit down, grab a coffee, and start playing Rocket League. If you could do that and start playing Rocket League at Starbucks, that would kind of blow my mind, right?
Right.
So and that's something we'll get a little taste of course, of Nintendo's own games, being Mario Kart and Splatoon.
Right.
But it's those, if they can start getting third-party support, that's really what's going to, I think, help ensure the Switch's success going down the line. Because right now, it's extremely exciting. Things are looking really good for the Switch, but right now we're still not seeing a lot of third-party support. So I really am hoping that they will start coming to the Switch like they did with the Wii. You know, to some degree, at least with the Wii. And yeah, you know, I think that is kind of crucial, maintaining a healthy ecosystem for moving forward. Although I will say, and actually here's something I want to bring up. If Nintendo is treating this as a true successor to both their handheld and their console, which have been a little bit vague on so far, I think there is potential for Nintendo at least to keep that momentum at least somewhat going by themselves. Because if they're focusing on a single platform, that is a lot more games they can now bring to that single system without having well, I can't even talk right now, to diversify among two different platforms. So
yeah, absolutely.
So do you guys think this is actually Nintendo's single platform moving forward?
Without doubt.
I'm undecided. They are so insistent that the 3DS is not over, and I mean it's going to be at least until. I remain skeptical until E3. If Nintendo starts announcing 3DS games for 2018, then I think they're going to try to keep going for the dual handheld console-ish market type thing. But if there's no games coming out for the 3DS from Nintendo in 2018, I think they're probably pushing towards single, because we do know that Fire Emblem Warriors, for whatever reason, is coming out on the new 3DS as well. And it's like, why? This didn't work for Hyrule Warriors Legends. Don't try it again, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the 3DS has games in development that they're gonna see through to completion, but I don't think they're really gonna be focusing too much on it after that. I really do think that when they say the 3DS isn't dead, it's because they have things that are not yet released, not because they want to continue supporting the platform for longer than they need to. I mean, it's got 50 million units sold, so like that's obviously a big market, big potential software sales. But if they are split between Switch and 3DS and smartphone gaming now, they're really going to have a lot of trouble. And so I don't think they're in any position to be able to cannibalize their own hardware sales between a portable system and a different portable system. And then, you know, also be making smartphone games on top of that. The paradigm, I think, is really going to shift from handheld and home console to smartphone and console. And I really don't see 3DS continuing for a whole lot longer. I think they're going to be bringing their A game to Switch.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much all of that. Nintendo has said they have more 3DS games coming that they haven't announced yet, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see some 2018 games. I think they will basically do with the 3DS what they did with the NES. They'll keep riding that until sales stop. Like, they were releasing NES games up until 94, I think? Maybe? 93? Wario's Woods is the last one. It came pretty late. And the Kirby's Adventure 2 was another big one that came out after the Super Nintendo had already launched. So, I mean, I don't think they'll go that far with a 3DS, but I wouldn't be surprised. My question is actually more focused on, do you think there'll be a successor to the 3DS, or is the Switch that successor? Because this is something
I think Switch is the successor for sure.
I hope it is. I really hope it is. But I don't know how they can compete with it. How do you make a 3DS successor that can exist along the Switch that just isn't a worse Switch with better battery life?
Yeah. I don't have an answer for that at all.
Insane with the dual screen concept, which I don't know if that's going to happen or not. So,
the thing is, too, real quick, Andre. On the Switch, you can already replicate the dual screen concept if you really want to. I mean, you just split it in half like they did with Mario Kart and Super Nintendo.
Yeah, so, it's possible. I honestly, it makes more sense to go focus solely on the Switch, but the handheld market is their legacy. They've been so successful since the beginning with it, so it is hard to believe them dropping it entirely.
But
even
though
Switch, that's
right. See, that's what I see it as.
Switch
the Switch is the continuation of their handheld market.
So we'll see.
The Switch is
we'll see.
The Switch is like riding that line right there, right between those two markets, right? I mean, we will see. I mean, I think Nintendo's statements so far have just been them hedging their bets, like they did with the Wii, or with the DS rather, with it being a third pillar, which we all know how that turned out. So, and of course, you know, in a similar vein, they were supporting the GBA for some time after the DS came out, like with
wasn't the Game Boy Micro out after the DS?
Oh yeah,
yes.
So
so there you go.
Exactly. Alright, so I think that about wraps up for us here. Colin, do you want to tell people where they can find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Colin McIsaac. 2 A's, 1 S.
Awesome. Alright, Derek, where can people find you at?
GameXplain. You might not have heard of this channel, but it's out there. You just search GameXplain, you'll find it.
Yep. Alright, and speaking of GameXplain, make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on Nintendo Switch and other things gaming as well. Catch you guys later. Bye.